Last May, I packed 60 pounds of gear onto my 18-year-old mountain bike and headed out on a 14-month, 12,000-mile solo bicycle tour around the US. However, I decided to end my tour early after just 4,000 miles because I wanted to work on my feminine figure. I was inspired to this tour a year before as I sat alone on an ocean beach in Oregon watching a seabird die. Hours passed as my seabird convulsed, and I became desperate for its suffering to end. From the south flew 3 ravens, and they landed beside my seabird. One of them stabbed it in the neck 3 times, and then all 3 flew back the way they had come, cackling as they went. I sat beside my seabird and sobbed, trying to reconcile both the brutality and the mercy of the raven's actions. And I wondered, if kindness can look like cruelty, what other shapes could kindness take? I began to dream of cycling the world, searching for the many roads to kindness. A year later, in the first hour of my quest, kindness cycled up behind me and guided me to my path. And at lunch, kindness sat beside me and made me laugh. And that night, kindness offered me a bed and a hot dinner. In Washington State, kindness politely debated politics after giving me space to pitch my tent for free. In Kansas, kindness came in the form of the economic needs of the many small towns that relied on the thousands of bicycle tourists traveling through every year. In Missouri, kindness was traffic, offering me space on the roads over blind hills with no shoulders. By the time I entered Ohio, I was taking kindness for granted. But there, it surprised me. I discovered kindness buried within the stories of a homophobic racist. And in almost every town, kindness fretted over the fact that I wasn't carrying a gun. And when I reached Lake Erie, I discovered a powerful form of kindness within myself, in my new abilities to confront toxic, predatory masculinity. Every day for 6 months, kindness was everywhere. It was female, male, young, old, and people of every color, culture, and political leaning. But that is not my story. You see, I already knew kindness would be everywhere. I had discovered this before. In the summer of 2009, my 6-year-old son, Vazu, died from kidney cancer. In the months after his death, I bicycled from Seattle to Big Sur, California, searching for a road beyond grief. And every time I faltered, got stuck in purposelessness, some stranger showed up and got me back on the road. With their support, I was able to begin building a new identity within the shattered remains left to me. But that is not my story. I already knew I could build a new identity, because I did it 4 years before that, after my mom died from lung cancer. It took me a long time to rebuild, because I did not yet know that it was possible. For over 2 years after she died, I lived with so much fear and anxiety that I rarely left the house. Until one day, my father explained to me that he didn't want to live without his wife anymore. He wanted to be dead. I replied, "I know this sounds strange, Dad, but I think I already am." For the rest of the day, I played with Vazu, and I saw him from the perspective of a mother who had died. I saw him growing up without me. And I realized, for the first time since Mom died, that I wanted to live. But that is not my story. In order to go on a year-long, 12,000-mile bicycle tour in search of kindness, I had to walk away from the life that I'd been building in the 6 years since Vazu's death. It hadn't been a very healthy life, but it was mine, and I was tired of starting over from scratch. I was a 41-year-old daughter without a mother without a child. And although I had passion for the quest that I had chosen, I succumbed to feelings of valuelessness. An old friend found me at this time. We had known each other 27 years, and his familiarity was a comfort. He asked me out for drinks, listened to my fears of growing old alone. He said, "You know, Ellie, if you fell in love today, you could still have time to celebrate your 50th wedding anniversary." And so I did. And a year later, I married him. But that is not my story. All of these tales are only short narratives in the story that is me. I don't actually know what my story is. When Mom died, I believed that her story ended prematurely. There were so many projects she left unfinished, and her absence haunted me. I didn't want the same to happen when Vazu died. I wanted to see his death with innocent eyes. I watched as his pain became too great. I watched as he slowly turned his body off. I watched as his animated flesh emptied of the person who once resided within. His vacant body gasped for a minute after he was gone. When he finally lay still, he was like a porcelain doll, perfect and beautiful and lifeless. I thought, his story just ended. There will be no more new stories of Vazu to be told. His death, not his narratives, made him complete. And when I take my last breaths, my story too will be complete. Until then, I get to play with the narratives. I spend my days now searching for other people's stories to tell, yearning for all the ways their lives can be seen, and finding new ways that kindness lies within. Thank you for listening.